Hello, Tony, your deck architect here, back once again with another deck profile. This time, an update of a fan favorite. With the release of Lightning Overdrive comes the release of 100 new cards into the TCG card pool, many of which is legacy support for various archetypes. And while I am excited to showcase the impact cards like ZW Pegasus Wings or S4's Dog Tags have on their respective archetypes, today we will be focusing on one of the more anticipated legacy supports for our Antagonist deck. So the last time I covered Antagonist, it was back in October around the time of the release of Phantom Rage. At that time, I painted the deck as a combo heavy deck capable of working with a variable hand to build aggressive OTK boards going second and powerful boss monsters going first. This was partially in thanks due to some of the powerful cards Antagonist had at its disposal. With cards like Bakari and Bururu, cards that mimic some of the most powerful playmakers in other decks like Salamangreat and Goki, I demonstrated that Antagonist definitely had the right things going for it to be a potential meta contender. However, one thing was also very clear, and that was that the deck was lacking in just a few areas that really prevented it from being as competitive as something like its Cyberse brethren, the Salamangreat. And that's where our new support comes in. While the new support doesn't provide the deck with any new plays nor better end boards, it does serve to improve upon the deck's already existing plays as well as cover up some of the prior flaws. And this in turn produces a new Antagonist deck that is not only much more consistent than before, but also much more efficient. While the deck was previously capable of producing powerful boards using its entire hand, thanks to new support that same deck is now capable of producing that same end board with only one card. This impact in turn produces a deck that's not only capable of generating out the same insane power it always had, but able to do so while playing through disruption and still maintaining advantage as well. And those are some of the things I want to showcase as I get through the deck profile. Well, I have droned on enough. Without a further ado, let's get into the deck profile. Starting off our deck profile, we begin by first reintroducing the entire original Antagonist card lineup, before then introducing the new support. So, kicking things off, we once again reintroduce our 3 Bakari Antagonist as well as our 3 Achichi Antagonist. Having already explained what these cards do in a prior deck profile, I'm going to be brief. Both monsters are searchers for the deck, searching for something on normal or special, with Bakari searching for your AI spell and trap support, and Achichi searching for any other Antagonist monster that's level 4 or lower from the deck. Both of which include natural extenders for the deck of which you could then use to further build your board. Furthermore, Bakari also has the additional effect to modulate the level of any other Antagonist monster to level 4, setting up flexible C summons with it. And while both are fantastic starters for the deck, they also create one of the first major flaws for the Antagonist deck. That being that despite working well with each other, they didn't actually have a way to work directly with each other. Allow me to explain. While Achichi here could search for Bakari, Bakari didn't actually have a natural way of putting itself onto the field, meaning that without an AI spell to help him do so, he was stuck in your hand, spells that Bakari was meant to search. Likewise, while Bakari could search an AI spell and trap card, it was generally useless without other Antagonisters in hand to work with, Antagonisters that Bakari couldn't search but Achichi definitely could. This meant that in certain situations you would have awkward hands where you would open one or the other and be forced to work without the other, despite the fact that both were necessary pieces to accessing some of your more powerful boards. This is something we will address with a new support coming in. Moving on to our next Antagonist, we have our 3 Bururu Antagonist. Bururu continues to be a crucial part of the Antagonist deck. With a foolish barrier effect reminiscent of something like Salamangreat Gazelle, Bururu serves to dump Antagonisters that we need in the graveyard into the graveyard. And while before Bururu commonly dumped cards for the purpose of reviving those cards later, it now, through the new support, also has options to dump Disruption as well, something we will cover later. Furthermore, its effect to revive the other material when Bururu is used for the synchro summon of a Cyber Synchro monster continues to provide the deck with efficient synchro capabilities, allowing us to put things like our Wind Pegasus onto the field at no cost for continued play. Like before, one option to be dumped with our Bururu is our 1 Doyon Antagonist. Adding back any Antagonist monster on summon and adding back any AI spell and trap card upon being linked away for a Cyberse Link monster, Doyon continues to be our recovery option for the deck. But due to being a recovery option, Doyon is a card that's played at lesser copies such that you only see it when you need it. And thanks to the additional consistency option the deck now has, it now becomes much easier for us to access this card outside of just our Bururu, allowing us to reduce our previous ratio of 2 down to 1. This card is still very useful for the deck, don't get me wrong, given that both add back sets us up for future turns, but thanks to our increased consistency, Doyon becomes a card that's almost superfluous for our combos, such that we don't really need to see it to produce proper end boards anymore. Wrapping up our original Adegnisters, we have our 2 Doyon Adegnister, our 2 Hiyari Adegnister, as well as our 1 Gacheri Adegnister. All 3 of these monsters have effects to effectively special summon themselves from the hand whilst you control another Adegnister monster, continuing to serve as extendable bodies for our link plays. Now, we've reduced the number of Gacheri that we were previously playing due to the fact that we now have a greater reliance on actually resolving certain Adegnister effects, but otherwise these cards continue to be useful bodies that allow us to do our link plays through hand traps and in situations where we don't have access to our crucial playmakers. Moving into our original AI support, we begin with the most crucial card in our deck in our 2 Adegnister Island. Packing a non-once per turn effect that allows you to special summon Adegnisters from your hand so long as your main monster zones are clear and you haven't special summoned an Adegnister of that same attribute through its effect prior, Island effectively turns your entire hand into an extender. And we saw in our last profile how this card could be used to not only vomit your entire hand onto the field, but to also make use of both Achichi and Picari to efficiently build your board, being one of the very few ways to do so. What I didn't explore, however, was the impact of Island's second effect. While in the graveyard, Island can reset itself onto the field by banishing 1 Adegnister monster from your graveyard. This means that once established onto the field, Island will always remain in continuous circulation throughout the game, being resilient to most forms of card destruction. Not only does this make Island a reliable field spell for multiple turns within the game, but going first it also means your opponent has very limited options to stopping Island. Since most hand traps like Ghost Ogre or the Herald's Destroy, they do nothing to stop Island from simply resetting itself again, and this in turn means that you are at least guaranteed to be able to properly extend through Disruption, ensuring that despite Disruption you can set up a reasonable end board. However, despite being so beneficial for the deck, Island in turn was also the deck's greatest weakness. See, the card wasn't exactly reliably searchable to date. While Salamgrades had Balinks and Marincess had Sea Angels to search into their respective field spells, Adegnisters was not given such a card upon their initial release. This in turn forced us to play copious amounts of consistency boosters with the express purpose of improving our chances of seeing this card. But that in turn created a new problem. Due to Island's own ability to remain in circulation, once you gain access to Island, you seldom had use for a second copy. This meant that playing multiple copies of this card could lead to certain hands where you would brick on more than one. However, not playing more copies meant that you would see it less, and not seeing it sometimes was the difference between a powerful board and a subpar one. This conflict in requirements would in turn create an inherent dyssynergy in the deck, often leading to awkward but unavoidable hands. Thus, Island is truly one of those cards that you want to see all the time, but not too much of the time, something that the deck really didn't have a good solution to. Until now. As you can probably tell by the fact that we're running 2 instead of the 3, the new support has clearly produced us a solution, one that we will explore in time. But for now, keep this problem in mind. Wrapping up our original AI support, we have our 3 Idol Reborn. Idol Reborn functions essentially like a Monster Reborn for Adegnisters. Bring back any Adegnister from your graveyard at the restriction of not being able to summon anything but Cyberus monsters for the rest of the turn. What's important to note that as the Idol Reborn is a quick play spell, meaning that it can also be activated on your opponent's turn as well to summon back a monster for emergency protection or recovery. This purpose plays well into Idol Reborn's second effect, in that when an attack is declared between 2 monsters, Idol Reborn can banish itself from the graveyard and 1 card from the hand to add any AI support card from the graveyard back to the hand. Now previously, the only other AI support card we could add back was our Island, a prospect that was widely moot given Island's own recovery effect. But thanks to our new support, we now have another AI support card in our deck, thus giving Reborn's second effect some, albeit desperate, use. Reviewing our Adegnister X deck, we have the 1 Wind Pegasus Adegnister as well as the 1 Light Dragon Adegnister for our Synchro and Xyz options. Options with powerful removal effects that we can easily make through our Picari and Bururu. We still have the 1 Link Reaper of which we can link any Adegnister monster into to free up our main monster zone for Island's effect, as well as most importantly our 2 Dark Templar Adegnister. Now to reiterate what Dark Templar does, should a monster be special summoned to any zone that Templar points to, Templar can then proceed to summon back as many low level Adegnister monsters from the graveyard to available zone Templar points to. This gives Templar a pseudo soul charge-esque effect that allows us to quickly swarm the field with previously used antagonisters, of which you could then use to make monsters like our Wind Pegasus and our Light Dragon. One such monster that you can also make off for our Templar is our one Arrival Antagonist. Possessing all the hallmarks of a modern boss monster, Arrival Antagonist is unaffected by all effects, gains attack equal to the number of different materials used for the summon times 1,000, and can destroy monsters on the field to summon out Antagonist tokens. Off of a Templar alone, you can at minimum make an Arrival using 4 materials to have a 4,000 attack Arrival. And thanks to its immunity, its removal effect will always resolve unimpeded to clear out pesky threats while summoning out tokens that can be used to extend further. Furthermore, as we delved into in our last profile's combo opponent, Arrival has no summoning conditions nor conditions on its immunity, meaning that it can be revived with cards like Idle Reborn to then use its destruction effect to clear negates to spawn tokens to kick off your comeback. This makes Arrival a fantastic and semi-safe option going first to immediately put pressure on your opponent to out. However, note that I said semi-safe. See, despite its power, Arrival is not without flaws. Since Arrival can only be made using monsters of different attributes, gathering the necessary materials required to summon Arrival out with higher attack values is a hurdle on its own. And being a Link 6 monster, actually summoning Arrival often burns your entire hand to produce, leaving you seldomly with many other options in terms of disruption. This is especially a problem given the fact that while there are few outs to Arrival, one of those outs is the commonly played Borosword. Thus, without further disruption or protection, Arrival is almost guaranteed to be destroyed in the coming turn. And while we have established we have ways to make continued use of Arrival in those scenarios, you generally want to avoid those scenarios if you can. Fortunately, with the new support, we don't have to. Now onto that new support. Lightning Overdrive gave us 5 new cards for us to work with, of which we're playing 3. Now before I unveil these cards, let's reiterate some of the problems we established so far. The first is that we need more ways to synergize Achichi and Picard together to produce more fluid combos. The second is that we need a more efficient means of accessing our Ignister Island without being forced to play too many copies. And the third is that we need more ways to protect our Arrival from being destroyed. With these problems established, I want you to keep them in mind as we go through these next few cards, because while I don't think these cards are particularly overpowered, they do much to solve these problems. Starting it off, we begin with our lone new monster in our one Danmari Antagonist. Danmari is a level 6 monster with 2 effects. While in hand, should an attack be declared involving one of your Antagonist monsters, Danmari can special summon itself onto the field and negate that attack. Furthermore, while on the field and in the graveyard, should you control a Link 6 monster, like our rival Antagonist, Danmari can banish itself as a quick effect to target one card on the field and negate its effects until the end of the turn. Looking at Danmari's 2 effects, it's pretty clear that both were meant to solve the third problem in our deck by providing additional protection to our rival Antagonist. Through its in-hand effect, Danmari can stop attacks from monsters that would naturally run over our rival. And through its graveyard effect, an effect that, mind you, can only be used while you control an Arrival, Danmari can negate the effects of monsters that would increase its attack to run over the Arrival. And while neither of said effects directly remove the threat to your Arrival from the field, it often buys you a turn such that when your turn rolls around, you can then remove the threat using your own Arrival's effect. Furthermore, thanks to the fact that this card can easily be dumped into the graveyard with your Bururu or added to your hand with your Achichi, it's very easy to set up this card alongside your rival to ensure that your rival has sufficient outs to the few options your opponent has to outing it, thus ensuring your win condition through its continued presence. Moving on to our next piece of new support, we have our 3 I Meet You. I Meet You is a normal AI spell card that can be activated by revealing a Cyburst monster from your X deck with 2300 attack. In doing so, I Meet You allows you to add one Antagonist monster with the same attribute as that revealed monster, but if you do not special summon that monster by the end of this turn, you will take 2300 points of damage. Now in very layman's terms, I Meet You is a Rhoda for the Antagonist deck. Since a majority of your Antagonist X deck monsters possess 2300 points of attack, and each one of those have different attributes, I Meet You essentially allows you to reveal any of them to add the same attributed Antagonist from your deck. And since we already know that we're playing the one Wind Pegasus, the one Light Dragon, and a Dark Templar Antagonist in our X deck, it means that at minimum, I Meet You allows you to reveal any of those 3 monsters to add a Wind, Light, or Dark Antagonist monster from our deck to our hand. But that's not all. What's nice about I Meet You is that you don't necessarily have to reveal Antagonist monsters for its effect. You can reveal any Cyber's X deck monster with 2300 attack. This in turn perfectly synergizes with the code talker options in our X deck as well, allowing us to potentially reveal cards like our transcode talker or a power code talker to search earth or fire attribute agonisters as well, thus giving us variable access to practically every agonister monster in our deck. But what makes Imei particularly powerful compared to other Rhoda-esque cards is the synergy it has with other agonisters. Since Imei is an AI spell card, it can be searched with your Picari Adagnister, and that means Picari can now also search Adagnister monsters on top of Adagnister support cards. This essentially turns Picari into another copy of a Chi-Chi, essentially giving you 6 copies of a Chi-Chi in your deck to work with. Not only that, since Imei can also search into your Chi-Chi, you can use your Picari now to search into your Chi-Chi and then, through cards like Island, special summon it onto the field to search for a third Adagnister monster, thus giving you access into a direct stream of 3 Ignister monsters of which you could then use to make your Dark Templar. Inversely, if you were to open the Chi-Chi first, you can still accomplish that same combo by summoning the Chi-Chi to search into Picari, special summoning the Picari off of Island to grab the Imei, of which you could then grab your third Adagnister monster, thus giving you 6 ways to go into your Dark Templar off of just 1 card. And given that Dark Templar itself is a 1-card gateway into your arrival, that means off of 1 card alone you have direct access into your ultimate boss monster, leaving you 4 other cards in your opening hand to be used for other plays. This boost in efficiency in turn allows you to not only make more effective boards, but it conserves your extenders for later, making it much easier for you to play through hand traps and disruption that previously ended your plays. But this entire line of play is only possible if you find a way to access your Ignister Island. Fortunately, with our 3rd card in our 2 Dark Infant Adagnister, that becomes so much more plausible. Dark Infant is a Link 1 Adagnister monster that can be made using any non-Link Adagnister monster. When Link summoned, it can add 1 Adagnister Island directly from your deck, and should a Link monster that points to Dark Infant activate its own effect, you can move Dark Infant to a zone that Dark Infant points to and then change its attribute. Now there's a lot to take in with Dark Infant, the most important of which is its search effect. Being identical to crucial cards like Salamangreat Balance, Dark Infant provides you easy access to Ignister's crucial field spell. But unlike Balance, which searches for a card that doesn't necessarily generate field advantage, Island is a card that immediately allows you to extend directly from your hand, turning every one of your remaining Adagnisters in your hand into bodies to be put onto the field. And since Dark Infant can be made using any non-Link Adagnister monster, it means that any Adagnister monster you open into can go into Dark Infant, which turns your entire hand into an extender. And that kind of flexible power is unmatched. Speaking just relative to our aforementioned Picari Chi-Chi line of play, Dark Infant means that opening either of them not only guarantees you 3 monsters, but also guarantees that you can make immediate use of all 3 of those monsters without additional cards, basically ensuring that you have a 1-card arrival combo without additional support. But beyond that, it also means that you will rarely ever brick with any of your other Adagnister monsters, ensuring that regardless of your ratios, you can be ensured that you can build some semblance of a decent board to fight your opponent with. And if that second effect of Dark Infant seems a little odd, it's because it was meant to exclusively interact with your Dark Templar to make a more powerful arrival. Since Dark Templar special summons monsters to the zones it points to whenever a monster is special summoned to a zone that it points to, previously it would at most be able to summon 2 monsters from the graveyard, given that one of the zones would be already occupied by that special summon monster. However, since Dark Infant would shift itself whenever Dark Templar activates, if you were to special summon Dark Infant to the rightmost zone that Dark Templar points to when Dark Templar is in the leftmost extra monster zone, and Dark Templar activates, you can activate Dark Infant's effect to shift it right, thus causing you to have 3 free zones and allowing Dark Templar to revive an additional body. Furthermore, in doing so, Dark Infant changes its attribute, allowing it to become an attribute that you currently don't have access to, of which you could then use to make a larger arrival, thus creating a much larger boss monster and a much more stable threat. With all the Adagnister cards covered, we then move on to the remainder of our deck, starting with the remaining monsters, of which we play 3 Effect Veiler as well as 3 Ash Blossom. One major difference compared to our last deck is the removal of our 3 Balancer Lord. Previously, Balancer Lord was played as an alternative option in case we didn't open Island that allowed us to put additional bodies onto the field. With the inclusion of Dark Infant and thus easier access into our island, that becomes a moot point, thus allowing us to convert those spots into more hand traps. Our 3 Ash continues to serve as our quintessential form of consistency disruption, but the inclusion of our Veiler here serves as the same purpose as our Danmari, acting as a way to negate a threat to our Adagnister arrival to buy us time to remove it on the following turn. Going into our remaining spells, we still have our 3 Senet Mining to improve our chances of seeing Picari or Achichi, an actual Monster Reborn as well as a World Legacy Succession for additional revival, as well as new additions in our 3 Forbidden Droplets as well as our 2 triple tactical talents. With the improved consistency thanks to cards like Dark Infant and I Meet You, playing cards like Desires or Gold Sark also becomes rather moot, thus allowing us to convert those cards into more relevant options like Droplets or Talents. Droplets here gives us another way to protect our arrival, allowing us to send recurring cards like our island to the graveyard to weaken monsters even as they are attacking us. And Talents gives us another way to respond to hand traps, either providing us the option of ripping a threat from our opponent's hand if we still have full combo, or allowing us to see more cards of which we can extend with. Rounding off the X deck, we continue to have the 1 Cyberse Wicked as well as the Splash Mage and Transcode Talker for easy link climbing options, but we also have the inclusion of the Fire Phoenix Adept as well, of which you can use its burn effect to end games or just to reveal off of I Meet You to search in Achichi. On top of that, we still have our actual game enders in our 1 Access Code Talker as well as our Firewall Dark Fluid, as well as the return of the original Firewall Dragon. Now, despite its errata, Firewall Dragon continues to have a place in the Adept deck, not as an extender but for its removal effect on our opponent's turn, giving us another layer of protection that we can end our board on top of our arrival for additional removal and disruption to that arrival. Now, it's at this point that we reach the combo component of the deck profile, and for this combo component, I have 2 things to showcase. The first is a 1-card combo that ends on a 5,000 attack arrival alongside a Donmari in Graveyard, and the second is a quick test hand to show what we can do on top of that arrival. Anyway, the cards are ready, the deck is shuffled, let us begin. Starting with our 1-card combo, this combo occurs whenever we either have an Achichi or a Picari in our hand, and makes use of the continuous resources generated by the aforementioned synergy between the two to create an arrival with 5,000 attack as well as a Donmari in Graveyard for disruption. So let's say for the sake of scenario I open an Achichi alongside 5 new cards for our opening hand. What I can do with that hand is I'm first going to normal summon out the Achichi and then activate Achichi's effect to grab into our Picari. From there, I'm going to link away the Achichi to summon out our Dark Infant Antagonist and use Dark Infant's effect to grab into our Agnister Island, of which we will then activate. Since our main monster zones are free, we're going to activate Island's effect to special summon out the Picari and then use Picari's effect to grab into our I Meet You. We're then going to activate that I Meet You, revealing a Dark Templar from our X deck to grab a Doyon from our deck to our hand, before then linking with the Picari alongside the Dark Infant to summon out our Cyberse Wicked. Once Cybered Wicked is on the field, we once again cleared out our main monster zone, so we're going to activate the effect of our island once more to special summon Doyon to a zone that Wicked points to. Wicked and Doyon will both trigger. We're going to Chainlink 1 Wicked, Chainlink 2 Doyon, adding back the Adept Achichi in our graveyard and banishing the Dark Infant to add a Bururu from our deck to our hand. We're then going to link away the Wicked alongside the Doyon to summon out a Transcode Talker, freeing up our main monster zones once more to then allow us to special summon out the Bururu, of which Bururu will then dump a Donmari from our deck to the graveyard. Then we're going to activate the effect of Transcode Talker to summon back the Cyberse Wicked, and once again we've amassed 3 monsters, of which we can link all 3 of them away to summon out our Dark Templar to the other zone. Now, since we cleared up our main monster zone and we actually haven't summoned a Fire Adept monster using our island's effect, we can activate Island once more to special summon out the Achichi, of which will then link away the Achichi to summon out a second Dark Infant. In doing so, Dark Templar's effect will trigger, and then we can chain the effect of our Dark Infant to shift it right, thus freeing up all 3 zones, allowing Dark Templar to revive 3 monsters, of which will revive the Picari, the Doyon, as well as the Bururu. From there, we're going to link or synchro away the Bururu as well as the Doyon, and we're going to summon out our Wind Pegasus Adept. In doing so, Bururu's effect will activate, allowing us to bring back the Doyon. We're then going to link away the Doyon as well as the White Adept to summon out our Splash Mage, of which will then trigger the effect of the Doyon in our graveyard to add back our I Meet You, before then activating Splash Mage's effect to special summon back the Achichi. Now, in this specific case, since we moved the Dark Infant, I forgot to mention that we do change its attribute, in this case, changing it to the one that we don't have in this scenario, which will be Earth. Now, at this point, we've amassed a Link 1 Earth, a Link 1 of sorts in our Fire 1 in our Achichi, we have a Link 2 in the Water, we have a Wind, and we have a Dark, of which with 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6, we can link all 5 of these monsters away to summon out our Arrival Adept before we then pass our turn to our opponent. Now, as I had promised, off of one card alone in our Achichi, we ended up on a 5,000 attack arrival as well as a Don Mari in the graveyard, of which we can banish to stop any threat that would threaten our arrival at Ignister. But what I failed to mention, but I think is rather important, is that we didn't even go minus in that combo. Not only did we retain an Imei, which essentially replaced the Achichi at any point, but we also still made an arrival at Ignister as well as kept the island, essentially going +2 in that combo. And mind you, we did this off of one card, so in an opening hand of 5, we still have 4 other cards of which you can build our board with, meaning that this is the bare minimum that an Ignister can do in our opening hand. With the other 4 cards, we can essentially make more disruption to protect our arrival, which can then proceed to win our game in following turns. Going into our test hand, the hand that we're going to be working with this week is going to include 1 Picari at Ignister, 1 Imei, wow, 1 Forbidden Droplets, 1 Ash Blossom, as well as 1 Doyon at Ignister. Okay, since we opened the Picari and we know that the Picari guarantees us arrival, this basis of hand is going to be judged relative to the other 4 cards. And since we opened the Imei, it means that Picari has a separate target. We open the Doyon for recovery and extension, but we also open 2 disruptions in a hand trap and Forbidden Droplets, of which we can back up our board with, and that makes this hand very powerful. So starting things off, I'm once again going to normal summon the Picari, and using Picari's effect, I'm going to grab an AI spell, of which in this case, since we already have the Imei, I'm going to grab an Idle Reborn. From there, I'm then going to link away the Picari to summon out the Dark Infant once again, and then use Dark Infant's effect to grab our Ignister Island from our deck to the hand. I'm going to activate the effect of Imei using Imei now to reveal a Fire Phoenix from our X deck to add a Fire type at Ignister from our deck, of which will add an Achichi. From there, we're then going to activate the Ignister Island and activate Island's effect to special summon out the Achichi, and then use Achichi's effect now, in reverse of what we did in our 1 card combo, to grab our Doyon at Ignister from our deck. We're then once again going to link away the Achichi and the Dark Infant to summon out a Cyberse Wicked from our X deck, and freeing up our main monster zone, we're going to activate Island once more to special summon the Doyon to a zone that Wicked points to. We're going to go Chain Link 1 Wicked, Chain Link 2 Doyon, adding back this time the Picari since we special summoned the Achichi, and banishing the Dark Infant in our graveyard to add a Bururu from our deck to the hand. We're going to link away the Doyon as well as the Cyberse Wicked to once again summon out that Transco Talker, and then from there we're going to activate the effect of Island once more to special summon out that Bururu and dump that Don Mari to the graveyard once again. From there, we're going to activate Transco Talker's effect to bring back the Cyberse Wicked, amassing 3 monsters, of which will link away the Bururu, the Wicked, as well as the Transco Talker, to summon out our Dark Templar at Ignister from our extra deck. From there, once again, the zones are free. We're going to activate the effect of our island once more to special summon out that Picari. We're going to link away the Picari to summon out our second Dark Infant, and we're going to go Chain Link 1 Templar, Chain Link 2 Infant, shifting it left, changing it to an attribute that we don't have. Since we already have the Earth, we'll change it to Water, and then we're going to special summon back the Picari, the Doyon, as well as the Bururu. Like before, we're going to synchro summon using the Bururu and the Doyon to summon out our Wind Pegasus at Ignister, of which Bururu will then revive us back our Doyon. From there, we're then going to activate and special summon out the Doyon, of which will then link away these 2 monsters to summon out a Splash Mage, of which we'll then use Splash Mage's effect to bring back one of our at Ignister monsters. From there, we're then going to link away once again using the Dark Infant, the Splash Mage, the Picari at Ignister, the Wind Pegasus, as well as the Dark Templar to once again make a 5,000 attack, or a 4,000 attack in this case. No, it's actually a 5,000 attack arrival. From there, we're then going to activate the effect of her Idle Reborn, this time, however, bringing back the Dark Templar at Ignister, of which we'll then link away using it alongside the Doyon to summon out a Firewall Dragon. In making a Cyberse Link monster, we'll then activate Doyon's effect in Grave to grab back the Idle Reborn, of which will then set the Forbidden Droplets as well as the Reborn, and pass our turn to our opponent. So let's do a quick head count here. Starting off with what we already know, we do have a Forbidden Droplet set that we can use to send the island as well as a card in our hand like our Ash to at least negate 2 monsters, or we can just use the Ash for disruption as well. We also have an arrival at 5,000 attack as well as a Firewall Dragon that can bounce 1 card. Or can we? See, the thing is, as we noted before, Idle Reborn is a quick effect which we can then activate on our opponent's turn to then also bring back our Dark Infant from our graveyard to a zone that points to our Firewall. In doing so, we co-link our Firewall to our Dark Infant, allowing Firewall to actually bounce 2 cards as well. This gives us, through this effect alone, if we were to activate the droplets after that, allowing us to send the Firewall as well as the Dark Infant as well as the island, 3 disruptions here, 2 disruptions here, and 1 disruption here, giving a total of 5 disruptions, of which we can then use to protect our arrival at Ignister, putting a lot of pressure on our opponent and will most likely kill our opponent in the following turn. And that's going to do it for our Ignister deck profile. So, what do I think about the new support? Well, I think the new support is absolutely fantastic. Very few cards provide this much consistency or directly answer the problems that a deck has, and all of the cards released really did that. And looking at the OCG already, we know that the support has definitely benefited the decks, such that Ignister's has been seen topping in the OCG. And coming into the TCG without Max C, this deck has much less to fear about going first and building powerful boards. Furthermore, there's very few things though that can really out that arrival at Ignister. Outside of Borosword, which we do have the answer on Don Mari, very few decks in Tri-Brigade or Dragonlink have something that can beat over 5,000 attack, making this deck and the arrival and the other boss monsters it makes powerful game enders for your deck. And in doing so, I think in the right hands, this deck definitely can do very well in the coming events. But I digress. This has been Tony Yang, your deck architect, with a Ignister deck profile. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys next time.